the original dirt tee. I'm back on it. I'm actually on it. Like, not even back on it.
Dean's tea.
Dean's tea. How many boxes I bought? Amazon.
So you're taking the piss out of it, and now you're saying that all you're doing is drinking this tea.
100%. Now the original dirt tea is on, and hello AFL enjoyers, fellow AFL enjoyers.
Hello everyone. How we doing?
Yeah, with mate.
We're doing good.
You know what? The things are slightly better. You know, hey, from both of our teams' perspectives.
Yeah, I'm kind of wearing blue colours, but I put it on thinking, it'll be like a Carlton theme, but really it's actually just a Geelong.
Yeah, it is a little.
It's actually a bit embarrassing.
No, anyway, look.
Shout out Geelong.
Shout out Geelong, for the loss.
Shout out Baz.
Mate, that he's doing well. We'll give him that, man.
But he could win a Brownlow.
That would be insane, but like he's flashy, you know what I mean? Like he's constantly on the ball, and he's progressing the ball forward, and he's using it well, which is something I've said that he can't do.
Yeah,
but all of a sudden he can, which is impressive. So hey, why not, man? Why not? Cheeky Baz Brownlow.
There's probably a couple of players I'll mention that could be a Brownlow.
Fair enough.
You want to transition into that game, like Brayshaw
Brownlow.
I think that's probably the most likely Brownlow at this point. What do you reckon?
That's fair. Look, if Freo
over 30 possessions every game.
Look, and even in this game, it wouldn't surprise me if he got 1 or 2 votes. You know, the 3 goes to Crispy, who, let's be fair, that's insane. Bro just goes into the midfield.
He picked the wrong round to dominate. He should have done that last week when it was his record-breaking game.
True. You know what? I didn't even think of that when looking at his stats. Like, it's like the response game, you know.
Yeah.
You always say they need to respond. He needs to respond.
I was thinking that. But I feel like he always dominates when he gets that much midfield time.
Yeah, 100%.
So that goes... Maybe he was injury hampered, he was tagged, but he didn't have a great game, and he was resting forward a lot. So it did give Crisp the opportunity with the goal going out as well, and Pendlebury not playing.
Yep.
And he showed him what he could do.
Well, that's the thing. Now it's just like, all right, well, if still Sidebottom needs, a couple of weeks on the wing just to chill out a little bit, he's a bit older, Pendlebury's a bit older. Obviously, they had all those rested players. Mate, there's just all this depth, What
did you think when they rested those players? I think did you change your tip to Freo? Because I did.
I did, I think. I did change my tip to Freo. But look, I'm not a good tipper, bro. My tipping... Like I was at work with my friend who's on the tipping comp, Kiara, and we're looking at each other's tips. She's showing me these tips, and it's like, 6 or 7 tips, right? And I showed her mine, and she laughed. You know what I mean? Because
she laughed at you.
Yeah, because I had like 3 tips this week. I don't know what it was, 3 or 4, whatever it was. Disgusting. You know what I mean? And this is someone who doesn't watch any footy.
Yeah.
So it just shows how much we overthink it and how much our recency bias affects those tips.
You're going to love it when I tell you one of my tips later.
I will.
You're going to froth it.
Yeah, North Melbourne?
No.
Anyway, back to the game.
Back to this game. So Freo dominated inside 50s super hard.
Yep.
Destroyed him in the midfield super hard and lost. 30 more inside 50s. 30, bro.
Yeah. Look, I think that just shows 4 key position forwards, whatever it was, 5 key position forwards. How many forwards do they have?
They have a lot
Amos,
of forwards.
Jackson, Voss,
Tracy.
Come on, man. Like that was never going to work. That was never going to work. There was never going to be potency going forward with all these guys going for marks. I don't know. It brings into question again the whole Darcy situation. We
got injured, so we're going to have another opportunity for Jackson to dominate in the ruck for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I don't know. Has there been anything coming out about the severity?
I haven't seen anything just yet.
Because I've tried to see like what's going on. I've heard that it was just a jarred knee or something.
Right.
So maybe
he looked pretty upset on the bench though. I think it was like tearing up. So maybe they're telling him some bad news. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows, man? Who knows? But yeah. Now look,
I feel like that's Freo. Freo is one of those teams that has that problem though, where. They can generate the scores in the midfield or from midfield, and they can get the ball inside 50, but actually that connecting piece is troublesome. And Collingwood, I think we say this every week with them, they're just classier than their opposition, 100%. And they find a way to score in ways that just seem simpler and easier. And Freo just look like they're making the game look so difficult. Like last week, they had one of their worst performances they've ever seen, where they just couldn't move the ball at all. This week, it's a very forward half game, massive inside 50s, but they're not scoring anything from them at all. And it's just like polar opposite Freo performances, and yet the result's the same.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like the potency for Collingwood is just, it's something that I feel like kind of got a bit forgotten about last year because they had an off year. But, now it's just like this guy's at the back, Elliott manages, 6, it's insane.
Yeah.
He's a kind of a forgotten man because he can go under the radar when he doesn't have his big moments, but that's just shows how much they have. They have a Norm Smith medalist small forward, and then they have Elliott 6 goals from another small. He sort of plays like a medium.
Yeah.
But still, that's
No,
insane.
that's a good point. And this win from Pies is actually a massive win for them for their season because they play a lot of games at the MCG.
Yeah, I've heard, I think 7 games in Victoria, I believe. The next, in the next year, 7
which everyone
rounds.
talks about, right? But we know that when you travel, it's harder to actually get those wins, and winning away is kind of the key to playing top 4.
Yeah, true.
And coming into this game when they've rested players like Pendlebury, Myercheck, you think to yourself, all right, it's not that Collins resigned themselves to losing, obviously not, but they're not giving themselves the best chance.
Yeah.
And they're saying these players, it's not in their best interest to actually travel, we'll give them a rest. But they still find a way to win it.
Yeah.
They come back, and now these players are rested up, and they're going to go again at home. Yeah. So it's almost like a double win in a way.
And in a round where, we'll talk about that at the end of the pod about Brisbane draw, and they show, a little bit of weakness. It makes Collingwood look like by far the, clubhouse champions, clubhouse leaders.
Well, they're playing some pretty good football. So if you're a Pies fan, you're pretty happy.
Oh yeah, and ominous for everyone else.
It is a bit ominous.
No one likes them. So yeah, but look, from Freo, like we look at Clark comes back and has the vintage Clark performance. That's his best game of the year.
Yeah, I think he's close to their most important player, man. We know the role of halfbacks, and there are a couple of players in that team that can get a lot of cheap possessions. I think Wagner sometimes. Luke Ryan is the king of the free possession.
Loves
but he just does absolutely nothing other than just chip the ball side to side. But Clark has the ability to take the game on. He's a good user of the ball. He's a live wire. There'll be times where Freo's the clearance is kind of in contention, and then Clark will come by and get the handball received from like a Sarong or something, and get involved in the contest from the back line. So he's a special player. He's the type of player that you'd probably look at tagging potentially. I know that Sarong's copying that brunt at the moment, but I'd probably look at Clark tag as well.
What's the thing? Because Sarong can still get his clearances when he's getting tagged. Yeah. But it's just like, who's going to stop, when the handball eventually gets at the Clark? Like, that's where the driving is coming from. So him and Brayshaw. So it's interesting that clubs keep going for Sarong, bro. Yeah.
He's a pretty deadly. I think it's almost like they think that if they can stop Freo in the midfield, they've got no other option. But in this instance, they won the midfield and they still didn't win. So I don't know. Fremantle's got a lot of work to do, and their coach is under a lot of fire at the moment, and for good reason.
And you look at the other end, it's like Collingwood are just like, they must feel so good. That coaching group, the players, they must feel so confident right now.
And when we talk about like Dacos or bust, well, it isn't Dacos or bust in this instance.
Yeah, well, exactly
he
that.
He hardly did anything.
In a weakened team, they eventually had to move him forward. They saw him, they're working on his glute or whatever it was, his hip, so he wasn't running with that freedom that he usually has. So, and I guess Freo, part of their plan was to, rough him up and, get him, but then in the end it didn't matter. There was still these other options. I guess it was... like the objective was complete by winning the midfield and stopping Dacos, but look, there's so much elements of Collingwood's game. So
I wonder whether Freo can look at that a bit glass half full and say, look, at least we responded from last week. If you give us those numbers of nearly 30 more inside 50s, winning the contested battle hard, would you take that? Obviously, you would. So maybe that last connection piece of the inside 50s is always the hardest part to get, and most teams like the Carltons, the Ports, the Melbournes, Freos, these are the teams that struggle with that. At least they clearly know what they need to work on, so we'll see whether over the next couple of weeks they can kind of put it all together.
Well said.
I guess we'll talk about Carlton now. Blue Boys, mate.
The Blue Boys.
So we started 0-4, now we're 4-5.
Yeah, look, that's definitely positive.
It's a resurrection of sorts. I'm not out there saying that Carlton's like this amazing team and we're definitely going to make the finals or anything like that. It's going to be a massive grind for the rest of the year. But at least they were able to kind of find their way through. Beat a good team in Geelong, get smashed by Adelaide, fine. But St Kilda is also another team that Carlton really struggles against.
Yeah.
They've got a pretty bad record against them. But one of the reasons why I was a bit more confident is because it's the MCG.
Yeah.
And I actually went to this game.
Oh,
so I was there Friday night watching it. And it's interesting. I haven't seen St Kilda play live for a while, and we talk about this Ross line game style and how they're very defensive and they're hard to score against, and you saw that. Like Carlton played a very back half game, And I don't think they switched the ball through the midfield like once the whole game, man.
Oh, wow.
Like they are, St Kilda are actually very, very good at clogging up the corridor and being disciplined in their defense. So you saw that, and I guess Carlton's response to that was just to switch the ball. I have not seen Carlton switch the ball that much in such a long time. Every play was a switch, bro. Every play, with an attempt to kind of spread the play and find opportunities to mark and kick their way through it. And I wrote Carlton scored 33 points from halfback, which AFL average is 19, and the Saints scored 2. So you can see that was actually kind of how they were finding a way to score.
Impressive, because Cowan goes down, and was it McGovern as well? He went down. So it's like two of, those guys who are providing that drive of halfback go down, but you're able to, make do with Silvani, with Chera going down back.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because my next point was going to be how strong Sauce has been in the back line. Amazing. Nick Haynes, who had the worst first game you'll have for Carlton, and a pretty bad couple of weeks after that, has transformed himself into the Nick Haynes of GWS. He's been really, really good.
Mate, he was an All-Australian.
Yeah.
I think people forget that this dude, All-Australian defender, those spots, they're kind of hard to come by.
Yeah.
But he managed to sneak one of those. I couldn't tell you what year it was, but, even if it was, if it was probably 5 or 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
But regardless.
Yeah, so he's playing really good football, and Wiedering is we know what Wiedering is. So to see those three live, man, they held up so strong. And I don't know what the stats were inside 50s wise. I didn't check it, but it felt like the Saints had a lot of they played a forward half game for periods of the match, and the only thing stopping them was like a Sovani or a Wiedering one-on-one contest.
What I will say in regards to that, though, you did come up against a forward line of Sharman and Caminiti.
Yeah.
And Caminiti, I hope the best for the guy, but
he didn't have the best game,
bro. This game, I saw some dumb stuff. Even the previous week.
Yeah.
Shout out to my mate Chris. He called him I think he was at this game. He called him a donkey, and everyone laughed. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah,
I didn't reach out to Chris. I got to give him more shit, man.
He was giving
me a lot of shit at the start of the year.
Bro, he likes to dish it out. So he'll be hearing this right now. So what do you want to say to him, Georgie?
Chris, look, you're a good kid, man. A new father. But your team sucks, bro.
Yeah, no,
pathetic.
That's facts.
You can give us enough shit, but one flag in 100 years, bro. Give me a spell.
No key forwards,
Well, where's Max King, bro?
I don't know. I'm curious to see how long he's out for. Because they need something. They did get a little bit of something
from the poo.
Mr. Mateus Philippou.
Yeah.
I want to see him in the midfield for Supercoach purposes. But even as a forward, he's still he's able to impact games, because kid can mark it. Kid's clean when he gets the ball. He's one of those guys. He picks it up and he's able to get the hands up.
I think they said they're going to give him more midfield time. It's just kind of a warm-up game for him. He was good. I think the main player for the Saints, clearly who I think is their best player, is, can you guess?
Nazar.
Yeah. It was him or bust, almost. That's what it looked like. The amount of ground he covers and the amount of times they try to get the ball in his hand, he's the one that like, stop him. Like, if you stop him, you're fine.
Yeah. So there's Sinclair as well, obviously. But I think Naz, because he's got that bit of, he's better. I feel like he's quicker. Yeah. He's got that size. So defensively, you're seeing him, going third man up and trying to take, some intercepts. It makes a difference. Yeah. Plus the kicking is just...
He's a special player, man. Yeah. He's a top 20 player in the AFL easily, in my mind. Yeah. And it's good when you watch the game live and you get to see how much impact one player has. So that was obvious from Saints. Yeah. The other St Kilda player that I don't think he had an amazing game, but one you notice is Darcy Wilson.
Yeah.
His running power, you can't hide from that. Half the time he's like free. I'm like, how's this guy free? And I'm like, wait, just no one can run with him. Yeah, and we've got some good runners, man. So he was good to watch. What else did I have?
I want to say, before you jump onto another player, I want to go back to Naz, right?
Yeah.
Now, Naz is, at the moment, like one of the best kicks in the comp, but they don't have someone for him to kick it to. They've got Sharman and Caminiti. Hopefully Max King can come back and all of a sudden this dude can become even more effective, because you have a key position to kick it to.
Yeah.
But mate, at what stage is he going to just look at Adelaide, go back home, you're going to kick it to Riley Thilthorpe? Yeah. Seriously, that must be such a tempting factor. The fact that I could go to this team. They don't have anyone off halfback who I think, they have to have the ball over him. Laird's obviously solid. Hinge is solid. But Naz goes in and he would be the guy, all kick-outs.
Yeah, I hope
Like,
he doesn't go to Adelaide, man.
I hope so as well. But how tempted would you be if you're him to go, I'm going to go into this team, I'm going to be the main kicker, me and Dawson, and we're going to be kicking it to Thilthorpe and Fogarty. These huge, especially Thilthorpe, this behemoth of a man who's going to make my kicks look even better than they already are. But I'd be scared of that, to be honest, if I was a Saints supporter. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd like to see him stick at the Saints, as we said, because I do think that, not now, but in the next couple of years, I think they'll start to come good.
Yeah,
because they do have some nice players. They just don't have enough of them.
Yeah.
But there are some players to build the team around. So they're just going to have to stick fat and find a way to kind of maybe lure some big fishes. And obviously Tom DeGonning.
Yeah, look, it was an interesting battle.
I thought it was a very even battle. And Marshall's not the easiest ruckman to go up against.
No. I watched this with intent because I have both of them in my Supercoach team.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, if TDK goes to Saints, he's definitely the ruckman. Because in the first quarter and a half, I'm like, the Conning was dominating.
Yeah.
But then Marshall brought it back.
He did bring it back. Yeah.
He honestly,
with some marks around the ground as well.
Exactly. So it was, and I think he won the hit out. The hit out.
It was very close. From memory.
It might have been the exact same. Actually, let's have a look. Oh, actually, no, the Conning 36 to 33. But I think Marshall definitely brought it back, and the marks were huge. Yeah. So, so that was interesting. Look, there's your marking target, if the Koenig does go there. You know.
He was even asked about it after the game, and typical AFL answer of, I don't get too stressed about it. I just try to focus on the game type of thing.
I'm not too stressed, It's like either I pick the team, the most popular team or one of the most popular teams in the country, or I'm going to go get paid 1.7 million as a ruckman.
And he's still going to get paid $1 million at Carlton anyway.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing now. Like, how do you make that distinction? I'm like, who's going to be a better team?
Because then you have to go play for the Saints, dude.
That's the thing. Do you want to be a premiership player at Carlton, or do you want to be a premiership player at the Saints? But here's what I guess you could say.
It's likely neither.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's likely neither. But if you're a premiership player at the Saints, it's pretty impressive because, this is a team that hasn't won it since '66.
Nah, you want to be a Carlton flag, man. Bring it back. Bring it home after 30 years.
Fair enough.
The last thing I'll say about this game, which I kind of alluded to, I see why the Saints are so good at Marvel because their defense is so strong and the way they kind of set up. It's a smaller ground, and so it's easy to kind of restrict your opponents. And I kind of was watching Carlton move the ball, and I thought, man, I understand why Freo struggled so much. Yeah. The fact that it's a G, you can spread out a bit more. It gives a bit more leeway. But if they're going to play like that, you can see how Marvel games could be really low scoring and really tight and kind of just squeeze the life out of your opponents. And that's what I kind of saw. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I think, it's a good way to play, especially when you don't have enough, talent around the ground. It's just at least be restrictive. And the guys who do have talent, they're going to shine through at some point. Yeah. So jump into next one.
Yep.
A boring game. I'm probably not going to spend too much time talking about it, but before we, jump too much into the actual analysis of the game, we did get a question from a long-time viewer and enjoyer of AFL, JL. Is Weddle the best utility in the game at the minute? I'd say probably
You think he is?
Yeah.
How is he? Is he actually played as a utility?
Well, yeah, because he's playing forward, he's playing wing, he's playing defense. Yeah. I actually think I honestly think he could be an inside mid with that size and that speed, right? So I actually think when it comes to dudes who can play every position and actually do play every position, because they swung him forward in the end. There's not many other players who do it. Like, he might be the only real proper utility in the game these days.
I think there's more. But I haven't thought about it too much. I mean, even in his own team, Sicily would be a utility. Is he not?
But I think the difference between him and Sis is that Sis, I see him as a swingman forward in defense.
Yeah, that's what a utility is, right?
Yeah, but I feel like Weddle's everywhere. And that's what makes him so unique, is the fact that he can be wing, the fact that he can be key defender, the fact that he can key forward. It's, I think actually, Sissels could probably play a bit of wing, probably play a bit of midfield as well.
Another guy, like a Carlton guy.
Yeah.
Jack Silvani is a serious utility. He's played forward, deep forward, half forward, second ruck. Now he's full back. Yeah, there are players that can play that role. For me, I might be a bit naive, but I don't feel like I've seen Weddle play that many different positions. I know he probably played it in this match.
Yeah, no, he does play a lot of positions.
He does
play a lot of positions, I'll tell you. But yeah,
I see him more as the half back. Is he not more of a half back than anything else?
Look, that's probably where he's played most of his footy, and that's where he's a lot of junior footy as well. But look, eventually he could be the forward that, you know, pairs up with. I don't know who he's even pairing up with these days at Hawks because, you know, Chol's solid, but, you know, is he the long-term piece? Is, you know, Mitch Lewis is the big boy, but he's always injured. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's interesting. It's interesting their sort of situation. Gunston, you know, he's still doing his business, but for how long?
Yeah, well, probably not that long, even though he's one of the best forwards this year. They've got Cal Shadir as well.
Oh, true. You know what? He'll probably come back and take a lot of key forward time.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be back pretty soon as well, which is good. I think he might be traveling to where are they on to next, man? Where are they on to Darwin. I'm pretty sure he's already traveling to Darwin. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's a good.
He had
sign.
an amazing final series last year.
Yeah, so
with the Wiz. About this game, Melbourne have beaten Hawks 8 of the last 9 times. Before this,
what?
Yeah, I tipped Melbourne as a result.
That's the one.
No, there's another one that's better.
How did you tip Melbourne, Mark?
Because of the record, and I want to win one back. And it was looking all right, man. They were even for the whole game, except for the last quarter.
That is insane.
And then the other one, 8 of the 9, that other one was a draw.
Well, you know what? There's something there, but
there isn't because Hawks have been bad for a long time.
Yeah,
and Melbourne have had a good patch over the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, that's interesting, man. But it's very interesting.
That's that, and Melbourne won the clearances, but you know what the difference is? Melbourne won clearances, but Hawks actually had more scores from stoppages.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So they're winning clearances, but it's not resulting in goals when the Hawks do. It is. I think this was just both teams' strengths and weaknesses in this game because Melbourne, we know they can win the ball, we know they can get it forward, but they can't score. Right, that's the typical Melbourne model, right?
Yeah.
Hawks, what has made them so good, I feel like over the last year and a half, is the fact that they can kind of withstand pressure, and then when the opportunity strikes, they take it. And that's how it felt like it was in the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, it was just a massacre. What was it? 6 goals won. 6 goals won last quarter after an even game for 3 quarters. And when they got on the run, it was just like, all right, this game's just so unbelievably over.
Yeah.
So that's my analysis of it, at least.
Fair enough.
I also thought in the last quarter, someone, Newcomb, who didn't have a big game stats-wise, I thought he was so clean on the ground in last quarter. Juxtaposed by Petrarca, who's a superstar, fumbly as, man.
It's weird, man. That's
so fumbly. Like, I've never seen him fumble that much in a quarter of football.
Yeah. It feels like it's kind of the opposite of what you expect because Newcomb's more like that inside, grunty type dude.
And he was so clean.
Yeah, but you don't think of him as class, right?
No.
But you do think of that for Petrarca. All of a sudden, the roles are kind of reversed in this, which is interesting.
I thought there was a stark contrast of somewhat similar plays in similar roles for that quarter, and it almost showed the narrative of the game in the end. You know?
Yeah, I guess that's what confidence does to a player. Because even Newcomb didn't have a huge game up to that point, but still, able to
he contributed when he needed to.
Exactly.
And when the game was there to be won, I think I felt like from the eye test he made a serious impact, at least on the ground level. The only thing I'll say about Melbourne, and I've probably said this every time this year, but I really think that they've won the draft when it comes to Langford and Lindsay. Okay. And I think Langford might even be my shout for Rising Star.
I think he's probably got a hand on it at the minute because and I was thinking about this, right? Like, so we look at the draft so far. Number 1 was, who's number 1 now? I can't even think. Lawler, number 1. He's going to pop up in moments, but he's not playing full inside mid. He's playing a bit forward.
Yeah, he's had a great year, but...
Yeah, but it's not going to be a consistent, it's not a consistent role when you're playing forward for Richmond, right? Then number 2, we won't talk about number 2. Number 3, Finn O'Sullivan. Actually, no, sorry, I got him stuffed.
Yeah, you got him.
So number 2, Finn O'Sullivan, cool, playing back line, not a huge accumulator, but he's classy. 3, we won't talk about 3.
No.
4, was it Draper 4?
Draper 4.
It's been all right. He's been all right, but not getting enough game time. Probably, unless Adelaide get another injury in their midfield, that's probably when he might get a run in, but he hasn't had a real proper run at it. Who's the other one? So Murphy Reid, for example, he's dropped off a bit, and maybe he can bring it back up at some point, but you don't know. Harvey Langford, I think, was number 5, if I'm not mistaken. I know there was 5 or 6 proper midfielders. Levi was 5. That's probably the biggest threat, I think, is Levi Ashcroft. The fact that he has a consistent role and he's consistently finding the footy a lot and he's clean with it too.
Yeah. I'm just thinking now, purely based off what we've seen this year and nothing else, if you were to redraft it right now, I think I'd go Levi 1. Langford 2.
Interesting. Yeah.
Lawler
Look, I don't know if I can go Langford over Lawler, bro, because Lawler's so damaging in the way, and he's so like.
I think he's been pretty special, man. Langford.
He has, but I don't know, man. Over Lawler. Even Levi over Lawler is a bit weird because I'm starting to understand. I understand what the appeal is with Lawler.
Yeah, I mean,
the game breaking abilities.
He's very special. He's very special. So maybe, but Levi's the kid's already dominating, man. The guy, he had how many possessions? The guy had like 15 possessions and a goal in like the first half or something.
Yeah, true. No, fair.
So there's that, and then Murphy, Reid, Lindsay. I think they're probably the top 5. So like if Melbourne's got 2 of the top 5 on performance this year, I think.
On performance, yeah, no, 100%. No, that's fair. A little shout out to CJ as well in this game.
I think he's really thriving with the fact that Scrimshaw's not playing.
Yeah, and he's a guy who can fly for balls, and not only like so he from halfback. I'm looking at his heat map right now. All the defense was halfback and some up on the wing. He managed 9 score involvements, which for halfbacks, I feel like halfbacks are easier to criticize. The creative halfbacks, they're easy, to criticize if they don't get a lot of score involvements. He's getting that as well. Yeah. So, and 9 marks. So he's covering the ground, 500 meters gained. So that's
he's a weapon.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Scrimshaw comes back. It's just another weapon that they have to use at their disposal.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't know how long it'll last for, but last 2 games have been special for him.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
Yeah. Jump into Essendon versus the Swannies, and this it comes to the annual part. Annually the enjoyers will praise Essendon, and we don't want to.
I'm not sure I want to really praise them.
Okay, all
I
right.
just think this was Sydney. Sydney just did everything in their power to lose this game.
Yeah. To quote member of the Enjoyers Draft League, Perry, Sydney bad.
Yeah,
Sydney bad.
Sydney bad, man. Sydney was so bad, and I've never seen more 50s being conceded in a game ever. 7, I think it was 7 50-meter free kicks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was like how many? 4 in the first quarter, and 3 of them resulted in goals.
Yeah, see that? Okay.
And another one was a shot at goal that was missed.
That's
talk about momentum. Talk about now. I'm not gonna that's Sydney's fault for giving away free kick.
Yeah, of course.
50s, but the 50s, for most of the part, it wasn't like they were smacking people in the face. It was like, they didn't stand the mark properly or something. So
yeah, see that? Yeah.
And usually when umpires really police that hard and they go, they've been given the instruction this weekend to go harder on, the 15-meter kick rule or the stand rule, they start it from the Thursday night. But this was like a Saturday.
Yeah.
So that would have been blindsided by it.
They did a late meeting, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they did a late meeting. Yeah, they delayed the meeting. So there was the 50-meter free kicks. I saw one. I can't remember which player it was. Run too far. The Sydney player, he just started running and then he'd run too far. Like just mistakes you wouldn't expect from a team that was in the grand final last year.
Just unprofessional.
They were missing. So messy. I think this quarter, the first quarter, had the most intercept possessions of any quarter this year. So it shows that Essendon's turning it over and Sydney's turning it over. It was just messy as shit, man.
Yeah.
So it is credit to Essendon for getting this win, no doubt. And they had their moments where they were really on top of Sydney. But Sydney shot themselves in the foot a lot. And in the last quarter, they came so hard and they just should have won this game. That's my opinion of it. And typified by the quarter 4 starts and you hear from the broadcast that they've got a loose player in defence. I can't remember who it was that they were playing in defence.
For Essendon or for Sydney?
For Essendon. So Essendon's...
Reid plays...
I can't remember who they had, but basically they're up by a significant margin, and their strategy in the last quarter seems to be they're going to play an extra man in defence just to slow the game down and as extra preparation.
Yeah.
Whenever that happens, the other team always finds a way to get a run. It happens all the time. You slow the ball. We've got a lead. Slow the game down. Let's just ride the quarter out. It always turns to shit. Just look at the way Collingwood manages to do that, right?
Yeah.
And Sydney came, but missed opportunities and just with like so much class in key moments. I couldn't believe it because I was rooting for Sydney to win.
Yeah, 100%.
And one of the key factors is they put the Chad, who'd had a decent game, up forward, and he played most of the quarter up forward as kind of that weapon, forward 50 weapon, and he laced up some opportunities to some of the players that missed shots they shouldn't have, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. You can give credit to Essendon, and we should, but Sydney, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's a huge fall from grace.
Yeah,
huge
and also the Lizard got knocked out in the last 5 minutes. He was dominating. What a performance from him. If he played an extra couple of minutes in that game, maybe he would be the class difference as well.
Maybe.
So Yeah, that's my opinion on that game.
Nah, fair enough. Look, I'll be honest with you. I was working during this game, so I didn't catch much of it. I was just looking at it and being like, come on, surely Sydney come back, and it didn't happen. But the interesting thing, we look at some of the, the numbers and some of the different players. You can tell that they tried to keep the ball down at halfback, and they were, keeping it down there because like the players at the top of this, of this disposals list, it's Nick Martin, McGrath, it's Zach Reed, it's Pryor.
Redman as well.
Yeah, Redman. It's crazy. Yeah, no, I guess it's kind of working to an extent. But what I will say for them is that I'm excited for Zach Reed. We got to give him some plaudits.
Well, he's fine. We've been waiting for this for years.
Yeah. Well, look, what the thing is, we say we've been waiting. Honestly, I think just the Essendon fans have been waiting. We've maybe our super coaches have been waiting for it.
Fantasy football.
Yeah, we've sort of waited for it. So last year we expected something out of him. But the broader AFL community probably didn't know what this kid was all about. But he was a top 10 pick, and he's 200 plus centimeters, and he's a good kick. Yeah. That is a very rare combination. All of these things at once, and he's a calming presence for them. You know what I mean? He's, I think he's not erratic in his way he plays. He's just he's calm, mature beyond his years.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, no. So he, a lot of credit to him. Credit to Nick Martin. He got a lot of the ball and did very well for me in draft.
Standard Nick Martin performance.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it really is just accumulation. Use it well enough, but not, too crazily well.
Nate Caddy as well.
Yeah.
He had quite a big game. And also he really showed his mobility. And
yes.
Which is 100%. One of the trademarks why he was taken so high. So I thought he played a really good game. Sardell Hooley as well probably had his best game for Essendon.
Yeah, it was weird that he was always the sub and then got dropped. Like I don't really think there was ever a point where I looked at him and I was like, why?
Yeah,
without he should
maybe
get dropped.
Maybe it was a fitness thing. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, you know what? Actually, here's the thing. He was doing Ramadan as he was coming in, so maybe the change of diet, it would affect you big time. Let's be fair, So I think his first game, his debut, I think he was the sub. I'm pretty sure he was the sub, and he had to have all some gel packs, what are they called, just to get some calories into him.
You hadn't eaten all day.
Yeah, you had to wait until the sun goes down or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the feed after that match would have been crazy.
100%.
Yeah, so he's one of those guys in the mid-season draft that you looked at and you go, oh man, this guy's a good pickup, and it ended up working out for him. I think because he should be a mainstay in the team. I think he's an X factor.
I agree. I don't
know why they wouldn't play him.
100%. Another sad one for this one though is Hayes. Yeah, ACL. That's tough.
After a really good performance.
Yeah, he looked good, man. He looked really good to start. So that's a shame for him that he was his opportunity to play. I don't know where they're going to go. In regards to a key position, the next key position, but I guess it's always next man up in this competition, and we've seen it for Essendon. Yep. They're onto their ruck coach, so then they know all about injuries. Which sucks for them. Jump into the next game?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Gold Coast.
Dogs and Sons.
That's, mate, what'd you say? What was that?
Dogs and Sons.
Dogs and Sons. I thought you said something. I thought you said Go Sons or something. I don't know. They are your boys.
Look, I love the Suns, and I felt like they were the better team for pretty much the whole night. Like they almost always had some sort of a lead, and they almost threatened to expand that lead, but the Dogs found a way to kind of bring it back in. So it was a bit of a cat and mouse game, and it was fun to watch. And up in Darwin, the Suns are always going to have the advantage. I don't think they've lost there. But the Dogs are playing good football, and they're playing good football in different venues as well. So it made for a good contest. And man, the Dogs have some firing midfielders, and so do the Suns. So that contest was fun as well.
Yeah.
The game was, as I said, played a bit cat and mouse, but in the last quarter, the Suns really blew them away. And then the Dogs I was about to turn this off and go to the showdown, right? And it was 5 minutes left. All right, Suns did it. They're better. No worries. Expected kind of result being at home. And then the Dogs hit 5 goals in 4 minutes.
Yeah, shows that firepower that they have, man.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, all right, maybe I'll just put the remote down for a second. It was pretty good to watch, man. It was awesome. And they didn't get there in the end. But just to see the scoring power was pretty cool. So it made for the finish of the game pretty interesting. I think what's interesting about the Dogs is they're getting such a high return from their midfielders. Like Matthew Kennedy is almost all Australian at this point on the half forward line, which is to say he kicked another 3 goals. He played a bit more forward, but for a forward half kind of midfielder to be producing the consistency of results he's doing week in, week out, and kicking goals every week, 2-3 goals every week, is insane. And they always get a goal from Ed Richards, and I think they got 2 from their wingman. What's his name? The young kid, the dog. Davidson lost his for a second, but they're getting a lot of. I think they only kicked 1 goal from a tall, which is Buku. So the only thing that I'm somewhat concerned about with the Dogs is whether they can keep up this return from these midfielders, because I feel like it's above what you should expect.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a problem, but it's just something that I looked at. Whereas on the other side, I don't think the Gold Coast kicked too many from talls, but they did have Ben King kick 3 goals, 3, so he's getting a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and was leading the Coleman as well.
Yeah. So that's something I picked up. Just like I can't believe the return they're getting from some of these kind of midfield type players week in, week out.
Yeah, I just realised, Matt Kennedy, 3 goals himself, man. That's, like if there was an All-Australian second team, you know what I mean?
He's captain.
Because that's the thing, in the NBA, there's first team, second team, and third team or something, you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like in the AFL it doesn't really make sense because like there's this the team's already, it's a full lineup of players as it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many, you don't really need it, but that would be interesting. All-Australian second team, Matt Kennedy.
Really, it's the squad is the second team, to be honest.
Fair. Yeah. And you could probably make a second team out of that squad, you know what I mean? Because I think there's quite a lot.
But do you think that he'd be in the squad right now? I think he'd be in the squad half forward line.
Well, look, you'd have to go. I'm trying to think.
Because think about someone that's playing that role better than him.
No, it's not really. That amount of goals that he's kicking.
Like playing that role. Like I'm not saying like pure midfield. If you compare him to a pure midfielder, like he's not Zach Butters, right?
No, of course not.
To play that kind of, I'm going to play grunt midfield, then swing forward, kick my goals, kick 2-3 goals. He's kicked 10 goals for the game for the year, which is a pretty high return for a midfielder. I feel like.
Well, I'm looking at, so his clearances 6.7 elite. Where does it show? Can you show me goals, please? Because I
looked it up.
I want to see the. Oh, you got it.
I looked up 10 goals. Yeah,
10 goals. Yeah, that's fair effort. Fair effort in 9 rounds for a midfielder. It's 1.1 goals, whatever it is. That's elite.
So good on him. But I think my broader point is I think Bond is going to end up playing more forward this year because they've got the support in the midfield. Like Ed Richards is an absolute superstar. Libba always does Libba things. Another 10 clearances, and with Aaron Norton, he's had an okay year, I think. He's really their mainstay forward. Didn't have much influence this game. Bond's their most damaging tall. With Jamara out and Darcy out, they're going to have to rely on him, and he's up to it.
Yeah, 100%.
He's up to it, but I just think that's maybe their one area of weakness, I think, is just you got to get a bit more balance from your goals because I feel like they're getting too high of a return from their midfielders. I don't know other teams that get that from their midfield brigade. Yeah,
there is enough potency there to just move, Bont forward and that'll work.
So, right? Surely.
But but no, look, Gold Coast grind out another win, man. They grind out another win. You look at it, 15 shots, 16 to 14, 20, 12. So they're getting a lot of shots on goal. It's just, it's a potent team, man. It's a potent 100%. Team. I think, you know what, for the Bulldogs to get this close now that I think about it at Darwin, it is impressive as well. So
it is,
but yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about the Gold Coast. I thought Matt Rao's third quarter was really powerful after not having a good start.
Yeah.
Rioli's fit into this team absolutely seamlessly. Like you almost forget that he wasn't there last year. And John Noble to the same effect, I think.
I didn't expect this out of John Noble, to be honest with you. Do you think he was going to be this?
I thought he was quite good at Collingwood. I don't
know.
That dropping of the grand final surprised me.
Yeah,
maybe it didn't surprise Pie fans. I'm not an expert but whenever he played the game, he seemed like he always played well. So.
Yeah, well, he provides drive. He provides legs, and that's what I think. Obviously, they identified that they needed that. They went and got it, so it's worked out pretty well for them,
The other funny one was Fiorini kind of came into the game, and I'm not a Fiorini enjoyer.
Okay.
Or anything like that. I don't go home thinking about him.
Yeah. You don't enjoy his 45 disposals.
But that's what they said that in the broadcast, and they mentioned his numbers, and
insane,
it was almost like they were just taking the piss. He's 55 possessions and 6 goals. Like it was that every week.
You know what the thing is? The first time I saw those numbers, I saw it on Twitter, and I thought it was it was ridiculous. I'm like, oh, look at these guys, these guys joking around like that. But it's real. It's real.
Like they read 5 weeks worth of games, and it was literally 40 possessions and 3 goals a game. There was a 50 possession one in there. This guy, And he's probably going to get dropped this round.
No, 100%. No, he's going to get another 50 disposals in the VFL
He's just one of
this
those
week.
players that's just a VFL superstar.
Yeah, 100%, man.
I just thought that was insane.
Yeah, I wonder what team would sort of need that type of dude. Like, I feel like...
What is he, though? Like,
yeah, look, but I feel like if he's an inside mid accumulator, like, I feel like, say, I don't know, Richmond probably need that type of dude right now, but then they should be bleeding their young guys. You know,
they've got
Collingwood.
two midfielders that are in their first round draft that they haven't even played yet.
Yeah,
so
true.
They're going to want to get Smiling in.
Yeah,
at some point when he's back from injury.
Yeah, maybe West Coast, man. Just go to West Coast, bro. Surely they're not playing Tim Kelly in there. Like, what are they doing? You know,
they need class. Oh, but they probably need grunt as well.
Yeah, accumulation is a big part of the game. I would say, you know.
It is. Showdown.
Yeah, showdown. Jeez, mate.
They're always close to showdowns. This is another one that was kind of broken apart in just the last quarter.
Yeah.
And Adelaide kicked away. Rankin kicked 2 big goals. One soccer one and one big one from the 50-metre line. You think, Adelaide was always going to be too good. But then the last 10 minutes was just Port chipping away, not being able to do that. And I feel like that was a theme for a lot of the weekend. Like Sydney did that. A couple of teams did that.
They had being a great round of footy when you think about it.
It was. Yeah. It was, and very close. Port had like more than 20 inside 50s in the last quarter. Yeah, they hunted the ball, but it was just kicking to who?
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's like Georgiades, I guess, is a target. Lord, I guess. But it's just every time it kicked to a pack, you think, who in the world is going to mark this? Yeah. Who does Port expect to mark this ball? And I just felt like they were amazing on the ground ball in the last quarter. So a lot of the contests were halved, and they went to the ground, and then their ground ball players got to work. And I thought the most impressive one was Bergman. I thought Bergman was insane.
Well, he did a job on Dawson as well and sort of held him. So
I don't think I've seen him play a better game. Maybe Port fans have, but he bombed that ball in. Every second I took my eye off it to sip my tea, he was bombing the ball back in again. I'm like, wow, Bergman. It's a pretty impressive performance.
Yeah,
but
we didn't really know we had it in him, to be honest with you.
Because he's people are chasing him, aren't they?
Yeah, no, they talk him up big time. Yeah. Like, you know, he's borderline 800 grand a year type dude.
They do.
You know, and now, you know, when you're showing that you can do it, in a midfield
that
role.
was a big game from him, man.
Yeah, no, it's impressive, man.
I hate to know what his meters gain was, but
he actually topped them for CBAs. Him and Butters, 23 each.
Yeah,
insane. So like
it made sense.
Yeah,
and it's a pretty good heat map as well.
It's a lovely heat map, bro. Look at that. So it's a little bit bent. You know what I mean? Thank you for pointing that out.
You want to explain that to the audience, James? Or no?
No, I won't. No, suss out Miles Bergman's heat map. Yeah, it's something. 634 meters gained.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Wow.
So I just thought he was a bit of a standout. I mean, Butters always performs. Rosie won the medal deservingly. Horton Francis had his moments, which is the standard Port Adelaide performance where their stars perform well. But it was more of a balanced effort from Adelaide, and then some game-saving mark from Mark Keane, and then Riley O'Brien with the sealer mark in the last kind of moments. They kind of stopped the Port's momentum at the end and run down the clock. So that was a bit of a thriller as well. So 2 kind of fast finishes on Saturday night.
Yeah, no, I feel like the Mark Keane mark that's one of those things. Like, that's one of those moments you get as a footballer. It's like, okay, I had that. Yeah. I had that in a showdown. I can pinpoint that. I can show that to my grandkids.
Yeah, that's a moment that people remember. Fans remember.
So that would be awesome for him. So shout out to Mark Keane, man. That's another random. So they bring him in. I don't know if it was rookie draft or what sort of situation. I know he was at Collingwood before that. That's a find, man. Big key defender. There's not too many that you can just find just floating around. That aren't maybe high in the draft, or you're poaching from other clubs. That's huge for their list build.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the other one that I noticed in the midfield was Peatling.
Yeah,
with no Matt Crouch, he's really starting to show why he was brought into the club.
Yeah.
So he's having a big year. And then I guess the man right under him in that list is Thilthorpe, who's kicked 3 goals and a bit of a menace. Been a menace all year.
Yeah. Well, Peatling actually was 12 tackles for Peatling, and that's what I remember seeing.
That's what he does. Yeah.
Clips during the preseason of him just hunting people down and wearing a hat as well during training all the time, which is pretty cool. Bro's got energy, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that Matt Crouch sort of lacks is the speed and
The intensity,
the intensity. He has the intensity when he goes in, for the inside ball, but like, that sort of movement that you get out of Peatling is that's big for their midfield moving forward.
Fair enough. Move on to the next one.
Yeah. If we have,
which one is it? Richmond.
Yeah. So that ended up being just a low key classic.
Low key. As at the start of the year, you look at that fixture and you go, "That's the battle for the wooden spoon."
Yeah,
But Richmond's got 3 wins.
Well, there you go, mate.
I think the battle for the wooden spoon was won by West Coast before this game, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, shout out to Richmond and shout out to JL. He changed his gauntlet tip based on my advice that I gauntleted Richmond. I was nervous. I'll tell you that.
So you're still in the gauntlet?
Yeah, man. Yeah, but I've gone a bit risky. You know what I mean? Like, I think I've
got Melbourne.
I've done Melbourne. I've done Hawthorn. So Hawthorn was a bit, that's an easier one. But then they're kind of down on form as well. So who knows where they're going to be for the rest of the season? And we've done Richmond. And then you know who I'm going to gauntlet next week?
North Melbourne.
I'm going against Richmond this week.
Surely North Melbourne wins that one.
We have to, bro. We really have to.
I guess we'll talk about that in the tips.
Yeah.
On this game, I'll be honest, I only watched the last quarter because it's Mother's Day lunch. Yeah. And it's not exactly the blockbuster.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But I couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on in this game. When you come in kind of in the fourth quarter, it's just messy and people just falling over each other for a quarter. But it just felt like Tigers just had that. They just won a few more of those key moments.
Yeah.
And I felt like Tom Lidge seemed like he really stood up in this performance, which we haven't really said that from him for a long time.
Yeah.
But, with a bunch of teenagers by his side, he kind of showed that, hey, guys, I'm experienced. Let me take a couple of marks. Let me take a mark in the last quarter and miss a goal that I should have kicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I feel like when you look at, these are two, teams who've won premierships over the last, 8 years? So, when
2018 was West
Coast.
So they won it before the Richmond run.
Yeah. So obviously more fresher, Richmond will be more fresh off, the premiership success. They've still got quite a few of them around, and then they can sort of, they can bring you through games and, they can win you games, So I think that helps.
Richmond doesn't have a lot of those guys still there, but some of them.
Oh, but no, I feel like there's
Lofton.
Yeah, there's enough of them where, you can lean on them a little bit, Nank. Yeah.
Short was a laid out, so that didn't help.
Yeah, that's true. But West Coast don't really have that at this point. But yeah,
they're a lost cause, West Coast.
Yeah,
I mean, they played hard to try and win this, and they would have identified this as a game that they could potentially get a win. And they nearly did it. I mean, was it Gross? Gross was running in to the 50 to kick the winning goal, and Tom Brown took with the Titanic music in the background. So Gross actually came on as a sub and actually had a bit of an impact with, I think, 6 or so possessions.
Yeah. No, he was all
right.
If
he had kicked that, he would have been the absolute super sub. But Tom Brown saved the day there, and Richmond get a deserved win.
That's it. Another banger game, Geelong versus GWS.
So this is the tip. I tipped GWS.
Oh,
and I got it.
That's a great tip.
I thought, man, I feel like the Giants always win at GMHBA, but I didn't know what the stat was. So I just tipped them, and I found out after the game that they've now won the last 5 matches against the Cats at GMHBA.
That's something, man. That's
5
rare.
in a row at the Cattery.
What happened to the Cattery, bro? Where's the Fortress gone?
The Cattery is, gone. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. What are they? I'm trying to think. What hunts cats? You know what I mean? Like they've sent another animal in there. I don't know, a bigger cat. You know what I mean? Maybe a lion. They sent a tiger or a lion in there.
Well, they sent a giant.
They sent a giant. He's like, look at these little cats.
They sent Goliath, mate. Yeah. The Giants had a bit of their flair back, which was nice, especially in the first half. Moved the ball nicely. Callahan was the Callahan that we saw round 0.
Yes. Yep. The one that
baited us all.
The one that baited us all, and then I brought him in, and then also traded him out.
We all did.
Yeah. Anyway.
So he was just slingshotting the ball, and I mean Jesse Hogan kicked 7 goals.
Yeah, that's
so it's a bit of a wind back of the clock with the Giants, kind of what we expected them to play like. Well, Cats came back as they always do.
Yeah, it shows how big a guy like Hogan is to this team's fortunes, man. Like when he's doing well, when he's like, we've got to bring up the stats for him. Let me just rattle them off, right? So it's 22 disposals, 7 goals, 9 marks. Do we have contested marks here? How many contested? 2 contested marks. I think it was something like 15 disposals. The 15 disposals inside the 50.
Yeah, which it's insane.
That's like crazy to get that amount of ball in there. He's a special player, man. He's a special player. Like I think, again, when he's on, you can't stop him. And then another part of the ground, we go into Tom Green, and Tom Green just had a vintage Tom Green performance, which we haven't had in a while, because he's started the year with an injury concern. Came in 1 or 2 rounds into the year. So
I think it was 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So interrupted starts of the year. He's starting to turn his fortunes a bit in his play. One of those dudes, hard to tackle, 11 score involvements as well, which is big for him. So this is what we needed to see from them. You know what I mean? Because we've seen both Lockies in the half back being consistent throughout the year. Now it's time for the other dudes. Now it's time. Callahan, it's Green, it's Hogan, all these match winners. You know what I mean? They're starting to come into form, and I think that's what's helping him, man.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's definitely a better performance from their senior players. From a Geelong perspective, they had their chances late. They came home and they just missed a couple of shots that they're a pretty classy team. You'd expect them to kind of take. Bailey Smith, as we talked about at the start of the podcast, having a massive year. Max Holmes, when he plays like that, man, he's a dominant force. And just in Geelong fashion, they just got players playing in different spots. I mean, like Jeremy Cameron's a wingman now. He's been a wingman for a couple of weeks.
It's so weird, man.
Then he'll go forward and kick 2 goals, but then he's a wingman. And I love the fact what they're doing with Dangerfield. No matter where they put this guy, if they go, it's danger time, he swings the game.
100%.
Danger, go in the midfield because we're losing. Danger, gets the clearance. What an impact player, man. I feel like they could put him full back and he'd just take 10 intercepts.
He probably could. Let's be fair.
Danger, the best swingman in the comp.
Hey, mate, we'll talk about utilities. Talk about utilities. All right, maybe not Weddle, right? Maybe not Weddle. It might have to be cheeky Danger.
Danger's pretty special, man. So I just like seeing kind of the reverse. Instead of sending him forward, sending him back in the midfield to get momentum back. So that was good. But just a close, good contest. And the Giants have won 5 in a row at Geelong for some reason. They're just a good travel team, and they're forced to because that's all they do. They travel.
That's true.
How shit would it be to be a Giant player and have to travel 24/7? If you actually think about that, like the different experience you have depending on which team you get drafted to is actually insane.
That's the thing.
It's not just all AFL players are equal in their experience.
No.
You get to play an AFL team, you're lucky. You are, but you could be in the Gold Coast chilling. You could be one of the 2 Perth teams. You could be a big Victorian club like a Penderbury and play in front of 80,000 players, 80,000 fans for 18 years.
You could be a North Melbourne player and never win a game.
Never win a game. You could be a Cripper that lead a team and to just a fortune of never ever being successful.
Yeah, it's insane, man. It actually is insane. Like how much you draft day shapes your life. Like legit. But I think especially with traveling, it's like these guys travel like basketball teams travel. Like there's 82 games a year in the NBA. You imagine how much traveling that is, and it's a big country.
Yeah,
bro. That's what GWS are doing, bro. They're just constantly on the move, man.
Yeah.
So it's credit to them for for when they do play well and they do get wins. They needed this one. They really needed this one because we're looking at the ladder here. It gets them into the 8. It does get them into the 8.
Yeah.
But look, if they didn't, then all of a sudden they're stuck with Carlton. They would have been stuck with Carlton, Freo, and with St Kilda at
which
points.
are the 3 kind of inconsistent type of somewhat contenders, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Interesting. So I'm looking at teams with 20 points. Bulldogs 6th, Geelong 7th. So that's so there we go. GWS have now matched it with Geelong, and then Essendon as well on 20, and then 9th.
And I think Essendon's have they played one less game or no?
Yeah,
have
actually,
they?
You're right. I forgot about that. So and that came up in the middle of that they're going to probably play on the Wednesday during the bye at the end of the year.
Yeah,
because they
they're playing in that last solo round before finals.
Yeah, which is a bit weird, but it's got to be done.
Look, I don't think Essendon's played anyone good in typical Essendon fashion. I feel like they do this every year. They verse all the bottom teams so far. So
they're going to verse Bulldogs now this week.
Yeah,
so that's if you want to test, there's your test, man.
Yeah, we'll see how they go. Now tell me about North and Brisbane.
Now with North, look. Initially, the thing I find funny about this is that we have an excellent performance, right? It's a great, for what we are, it's great, but we still don't know how to win.
Yeah.
We still don't know how to win.
That was your chance to win, man.
100%, man. 100%. You know, right at the end, the sport. We got to like give credit to the spoil for Jack Payne. Like, and I've sung his praises more than I really should. But yeah, look, I'm feeling. I think we look at it accumulatively over the last 3 weeks. You know what's happened. It's 2 losses and a draw, 3 strong-ish performances, you know, at various parts of the games. I feel like there's always a quarter where we fall off. In this case, I think it was the second quarter. But yeah, look, I think you just got to appreciate these individuals. Some of these guys, like Sherry, right? Top 5. So it was top 5 for I've lost it off the top of my head, but it was third in clearances. Actually, this is what it was. First in hit-outs to advantage by about 13. That's insane. That's insane. So what he provides for us, you know, just clearances and hit-outs to advantage, that wins us the clearance battle most weeks. Yeah. And we lost that early on in the season when he had his hamstring sort of problems. When that happened, you know, we didn't play well. He plays well. We start dominating. Sheasel moving to the defense has provided us some calmness off halfback. Hardiman as well has just provided a little bit of drive, and he's a calm kid as well. So there's a lot that I'm enjoying with this team. Luke Parker has been solid in the midfield. Like,
he's probably been the only recruit that's probably
really. He's been the best one out of all of them. You know, Darling's popping up with some goals here and there, but I'm not going to say he's like, oh wow, it's insane. No. I think it's just we need him in there because it's like.
Someone has to take that spot.
Someone has to take the spot. Finn Barmaley is developing. Will Dawson's developing in the forward line in the VFL as well. I forgot to send myself my notes, which is a bit annoying. But another guy to shout out is Charlie Comben. Yeah. He had 12 intercept disposals.
Yeah, it was big.
I think he's top 5 in contested marks and top 5 in intercept possessions. Yeah. So I think we're starting to see the building blocks of this team. Like Comben, he's starting to, you know, mimic what Sam Taylor can do. He's starting to mimic, you know, I guess who's the other guy I was thinking to compare him to. But he's a guy you almost have to game plan for. You know what I mean? Because if he's going to be intercepting, you know, he's going to be stopping, you know, a lot of teams and their attacks forward. So, look, as a North fan, I'm feeling pretty good. You know, it's a shame that it's not a win, but you know, Stevens, I'm looking at Dylan Stevens. He had a nice goal in the game. He's someone that I've said that I didn't want him to get dropped, you know, like, you know, he's the usual guy who gets dropped. He hasn't been dropped. It's been Bailey Scott instead, and he's done a really good job for us. I'm feeling largely positive is what I'll say. I'm not too concerned about the lack of wins, but I will be if we don't beat Richmond this week. I really will be.
You got to beat Richmond.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and I got to say, it is weird, before we move on to tips, it is the thing that kind of is a shame that we've started to play well and Nick Larkey hasn't been getting the goals. That's probably been the thing that's just like, that literally single-handedly has almost swung the results the other way. Is, you know, the fact that he hasn't been his potent self.
Maybe it's just a bit more variety or a bit less predictable potentially.
Maybe, you know.
Because you know like how Saints play better without Max King type of vibe.
Look, that cannot be the case. That cannot be the case where it's like that. But yeah, look, there is a connection issue between the midfield and the forward line. You know, and that is an issue because we see it when we win. We won the clearances by 15, but
up against a great team as well.
Well, up against the reigning premier. You know what I mean? So, yeah, yeah. Now look, I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. 71-70. Yeah, it's crazy. So I was actually at work during this game, and I was sort of paying attention to the scores a little bit, but then I saw in the last 10 minutes, I'm like, whoa. I'm like, guys, I'm going to the side.
Yeah.
Give me 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes to watch this game, guys. Yeah. You know, so, and then I had to watch it. I had to watch the replay, which was, you know, which is fine. But yeah, no, anyway, feeling good about North.
That's good, man. Brisbane, I don't think we have to say anything. I mean, they clearly weren't at their best, but they still get 2 points, which helps them in their top 4 kind of pursuit. So.
Yeah, I think they spoke. Fags was pretty calm about it afterwards. He was like, you know, like, look, we weren't at our best, you know, blah 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 blah. But yeah, I think those players should feel a bit disappointed, man. They should be probably a lot disappointed.
Neil was kind of like, oh yeah, look, we didn't play very well, but like North played well, but we didn't really play very well. Basically, I saw that, and I'm like, I think this guy's basically saying that North aren't very good, and we should have won that. But
yeah, well, yeah.
Well, they should have.
Yeah,
But Neil didn't have the best performance anyway.
Nah, exactly. Well, next time, try to win the clearances. We beat you by 15, Neil, and that's meant to be your bread and butter. So you gotta, and also do better for my Supercoach team, you prick. Anyway, moving to tips.
Let's tip, man.
Gold Coast versus Hawthorn. That's a solid game, but up in Darwin.
Yeah, they haven't lost to Darwin, I don't think. So we'll just go Gold Coast.
And the Hawks aren't in the best form either at this point. Next game, Sydney versus Carlton at the SCG.
It's SCG, which hurts.
Yeah.
I'm not that scared of Sydney.
I wouldn't be either, man.
I mean, they hardly have a forward line. I don't know whether Blakey passed his HIA. Actually, I haven't checked that.
And that's a big...
If he doesn't play, that's almost enough for me to just be almost confident.
Fair enough, man.
I'm going to go Carlton. Just let's square up the ledger, man. Let's go 5-5.
All right. I'll go with you at this stage. I don't know. I might change it later. Collingwood versus Adelaide.
That's always a classic, man.
It is. Nah, true. Yeah, every year.
Yeah, but it's at the MCG, which means Collingwood.
Yeah. It's always, I feel like it's Dacos versus Dawson.
Yeah.
Because neither team tags, so just those dudes can just run amok.
He's done some damage at Adelaide Oval, Dacos, but this is MCG, so...
Yeah. GWS versus Freo. Look, it's got to be GWS. It's got to be GWS.
Freo hasn't earned anything.
Yeah, we haven't, yeah. Adelaide versus Geelong. So Port Adelaide versus Geelong at Adelaide Oval. Can't go against Geelong, man.
I'm going to go to Geelong, yeah.
Yeah. Western Bulldogs versus Essendon. We're going to go the doggies, mate.
We are.
Surely, come on, man. If Essendon pull a result here, though,
all
of a sudden
we'll give them some respect.
100%.
We'll give them some respect.
Yeah, we'll give them props. Then Richmond versus North Melbourne at the MCG. This is where I'm going my gauntlet. Because at what point can we be confident to tip North? In 2 weeks we do have West Coast at Bunbury Stadium or something, but that's in Western Australia. If I'm going to do it, I'm pulling the trigger.
You guys at your best are clearly better than Richmond at the moment.
100%.
Have to be.
100%.
But if you lose this, it will be...
devastating, bro. It would be the same feeling as when we lost to Carlton and I was just angry, remote's broken.
Yeah, but these guys are way worse than us.
Yeah, but
even though they beat us.
Yeah, look, the context of the game was the fact that we got smashed when I wanted it to at least be a competitive game against Carlton.
Right, yes.
That was what hurt. In this case, it should be a win, and it should be like a convincing win against Richmond.
It should
to
be
be
a
honest with you,
30-point plus win.
Yeah, 100%. Brisbane versus Nam. Go Brizzy, of course, at the Gabba. And last game, Eagles versus St Kilda at Optus Stadium. We've got to go to the Saints, but I don't know, man. I think if West Coast are going to try to pip a game, it's going to be at Optus.
Yeah, I don't mind the West Coast shout, but
I can't do it.
No, I can't do it.
You can't do it.
Can't do it. If you're brave, maybe that is a tip. They have to win a game eventually.
Yeah, and it's funny because with my gauntlet, I was between going with the Saints or going with North, but something.
North will win.
Yeah, there's just that little bit of doubt in my brain, for the Saints. Yeah. But they really should win. Anyway,
good luck. Good luck with North.
Good luck with. Thank you, man. We need it. We need to get this. You know what? We got to do the tipping shout outs, don't we, mate? You know what? Before it shouldn't take me too long to bring it up. Give me a sec, man. So going clear number 1 is Lana S. Skivo.
I feel like she's just always there.
Always there. Shout out to Lana, man. 61 tips. Fish and Crips, Nathan, is on 60. And former leader, work colleague of mine, Kai, is 59 with Kiara, another work colleague. Shout out to them both at 59. And also, who else is on 59? Hayden and Paul Curtis Taylor, which is a great name.
Yeah.
Shout out,
Rest in peace.
Yeah. And Bilbo's dropped off to 57, which is not the best. ChatGPT just not.
They failed him.
Yeah. I think he was telling me that he tipped Melbourne.
Yeah.
Was it him or was it?
No, both of us.
Both of you. So both of you did that.
Both of us went for the Melbourne tip.
That's crazy, man.
The Melbourne tip is a bit crazy, but I'm so far behind. It's like I'm like 10 points behind the leader.
What am I? I'm on 48, bro. 48 tips, bro. I suck so bad and I'll complain about it every week. And now the alarm's going
so it's
off.
told us to go.
Time for us to go. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys. Bye.